We discussed last time that there was a little bit of an ambiguity regarding what it means the next world. What is the ultimate reward? What is the afterlife? We even saw that there was this concept. We saw that there was a concept that the next world itself, Olam Haba, big machlokes, is that everyone's afterlife, or is it some sort of other reality that exists after the history of this world is over? It's a good question. And we saw that there was no resolution to that. The Rambam seemingly has it that there is another world after this world. There's the personal world. And he discusses that there is another reality beyond this reality, but that might not necessarily be called Olam Haba, the next world. And I have not been there yet. I'm saying no one's experienced the end of history. So too, no one who has been in the afterlife has come back to tell us what it was like. Just like all those people complain, they say, Jewish slaughter is inhumane to animals. It hurts the cow more than whatever it is they're doing in the European Union. As my Rabbi pointed out, no cow has come back to tell us how it felt to get shechted. But not only that, even if the cow could come back, it could not compare which form of shechita hurt more, because it only experienced one. It would have to have experienced at least two forms in order to be able to make that comparison. We are in Hilchot Teshuva. There is a lot that's in this section of halachos from the Rambam that the Rambam brings back in order to end the entire book. That is, at the end of the Yad HaChazaka, the Rambam discusses the advent of the Messiah. So he'll bring a little bit that we'll see here also at the end. Because of this reward, that's why the prophets and the sages of Israel desired the days of the Messiah. Because they'd finally have some rest from the evil kingdom. What is the evil kingdom? Usually in Chazal and later Jewish poetry, that's referring to the Roman Empire and its successor empires, okay? The ones that caused trouble for Am Yisrael. And they were hoping that eventually they'd have some. Well,
is there any empire that never caused the Israel a nuisance nefesh?
No, not really. Just some less than others. For example, the British Empire, one of the successor empires, just prevented the Jewish people from escaping the German Empire. Okay, so they let the Germans do the dirty work for them, and also the American Empire had a little bit of a hand in that. As you know, the Holocaust. It used to be. I remember there was a synagogue in Canarsie. Remember way back when, and where my father was used to pray when he was a young man. And I saw in the 90s they had, I guess one of those. Well, you don't have them in this show. It's very interesting. There's no memorial plaques around here. Very interesting. They must be outside. Okay, or outside. Okay, fine. So there are memorial plaques. They had one. It was a big Magen David in the center, and it was a memorial to those who had died in the service. The joke is, which one? Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah service? No, they had died in the service of the United States. And the Magen David looked kind of strange. It looked like a splotch of white paint in the middle. Well, what was painted over? When they first made the memorial, they put a picture of President Roosevelt II, Yimach Shemo V'Zikro. And when they found out that he had made the executive decision to basically allow the Holocaust to continue even as late as 1944, they whited out his face. They didn't want it there. So yeah, there's a little bit of complicity always with the Edomite successors in trying to harm the Jewish people. Just today, we're celebrating the fall of the successors of Haman, the Persian successors of Haman. Many of them have met a noble end. They've suffered all four misos based in one shot, so that's a good thing. We thank God for such a thing. But we have to remember their greatest sponsors are whom? Who's been funneling them money? The regime, the Obama regime. The Brandons and Putins give them money to harm us. Okay, they're sponsoring everything. Why? Because they don't want to do it themselves. but that's what they do. So yes, that's why the sages were desiring the Messianic era when such troubles will no longer befall us. So they'd be able to involve themselves in Torah and mitzvos. That's all they wanted to do. The Yimtzu lahem margoa the Yerbu b'chokhmah. They would finally find some calm. Margot is a respite, and they would increase their wisdom. Kidei sheyizku l'chayei olam haba, and they would thus merit the white life of the next world. So the Rambam makes a distinction, very important distinction, between the Messianic era and the world to come. Different things entirely. Lefi shebe'otana yamim tirbeh hadiyah v'chokhmah v'ha'emet. In those days, what will become great? The knowledge and wisdom and the truth. There's a difference between knowledge and wisdom, just like there's a difference between stupidity and ignorance. V'ha'emet, and also the truth. Problem is there's a lot of sheker going around, a lot of falsehood. Shneimar ki mala'ah ha'aretz diyat Hashem. That was actually, many of us read this last week. That's taken from the passage of Isaiah. That's the Haftarah for the 8th day of Passover. And for some reason, they made it also the Haftarah for Israeli Independence Day. It says, Messianic era, the world will have become full of knowledge of God. V'ne'amar v'lo yilmidu od. Hold on 1 second. Ishet re'ehu v'ishet achiv. They will no longer learn or be teaching each other what? How to make war. That's what Jeremiah says. V'ne'amar v'asirothieth leiv ha'even b'bsarchem. Notice the Rambam here is quoted from the 3 great prophets. There's one from Yeshayahu, one from Yirmiyahu, and one from Yechezkel right here. It says, I'll remove the heart of stone from your flesh. That's the expression meaning the inability to see things otherwise. A person has a heart of stone. Heart means the mind, and stone means he's not open-minded like we say in English. In Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, they don't talk about openness of the heart. They talk about hardness of the heart. And stone is the hardest stuff you can have. You don't want to don't harden your heart. Al takshu b'valchem. So in Hebrew we talk about hardness, and in English we talk about openness, but it's the same thing. This future Messianic king of David's seed will be wiser than Solomon. They say this is a little bit of hyperbole. And a great prophet close to that of Moses. Also, elsewhere, you can see that this is also a little bit hyperbolic in Rambam's opinion. The Messianic king does not actually have to be a prophet. How do we know that? Because Rambam himself described that Rabbi Akiva and others believed that Bar Kokhba was a good candidate for the Messiah, and he was not a prophet. And therefore, he will teach the entire people and instruct them in the ways of the Lord. And then all the nations will come also to listen to him, just like they did with Solomon. This is the 2nd chapter of Isaiah. He says, in the end of days, the mountain of the house of the Lord will be set right. Nachoniah, at the top of all the mountains. It's not going to literally be higher than the other mountains. There are many mountains higher than Mount Moriah. It's a metaphor, meaning the most important of them. The ultimate reward, that is good, the ultimate good, the final good, that has no end and no deficiency, hu chayei ha'olam haba, is the life of the next world. Aval yemot HaMashiach hu l'olam hazeh, v'olam ki minago noheg. The Messianic era is entirely of this world. The world will continue as it always has, perfectly natural existence. Ela shal malchuth tachazor liYisrael, except that malchuth, which literally translates as kingship, and this mean in our terms, this would be sovereignty. Okay? Will return to Israel, which makes you wonder, the Jewish people had a chance for sovereignty. I guess that the last now 75 years or so, 76 years, has been an amazing opportunity. The Rambam says that's why Hanukkah was so great also. Chazara Malchuth Yisrael, golden opportunity. But the problem is we sometimes squander these things. You give away your sovereignty. And sovereignty has a number of aspects to it. One is that there aren't foreign oppressors. and 2, that you can control your own land, and 3, that you'd be safe from your enemies. But if you do not control your land and give it up to your enemies and allow them to flourish in your land, you'll see what happens. The early sages already said, "Ein bein ha'olam hazeh limot haMashiach ela shibud malchiyot bilvad." There's no difference between this world, okay, the current reality, and the days of the Messiah, except we would not be subjugated to the other powers. Okay? But that's actually kind of interesting. The Rambam's taking sides in a great controversy among the Talmudic sages. This was Shmuel's opinion. Rav disagreed. So so apparently Rambam's poskening, as they say in Yeshivish, like Shmuel, against others. Okay, why did he feel this way? That's a good question. People have written doctorates about this, but that's the way he believed it was going to be. I think it's because of his study of history. That is, when other Messianic candidates showed up on Jewish history, it was entirely in this reality. It wasn't that the Olam Haba started and they knew it. They figured, this is the world. We're waiting for a Messianic Redeemer. And it's something entirely that could happen. It's actually better for Am Yisrael to be of the belief that the Messiah, the advent of a Messianic age, and having the leader who checks all those boxes is something that is not fantastic. Well, we have a question?
Some rabbis have said the fact that you pick up the phone and put by yourself to work in the world,
Yeah.
and the fact that you pop in an airplane anywhere you want to within a day or two, that this is the difference between is this natural or miraculous?
It's Messianic. We're at the cusp of a Messianic era if we would just Hayom b'kolo tishma'u. If you listen to his voice today, I look around, the problem is we lack leadership. We have, it seems that the people in charge are the ones who make the worst decisions and are the least aware of the magnitude of what they do. Every prime minister of the state of Israel until this point has had the opportunity to do wondrous, miraculous things, and even set the ball rolling in rebuilding the temple. And none of them have taken that opportunity. They've all basically declined. They don't want that responsibility. So if you do that, we're going to be stuck. I hope and pray that let's say we get another chance for an election, trying to tell people, don't vote for Labor if they even still can exist. Don't vote for Lieberman. Don't vote for Likud. Don't vote for the so-called Haredi parties, because all they want to do is, let whoever's in the government do what they're doing, as long as they get money for their institutions. And don't vote for the so-called religious Zionist parties, even though you have a tradition to do so, because they haven't done anything for you. Find the party or the people who say they wish to rebuild the temple. Okay, you have someone who wants to do that, and every now and then there is such a thing. Someone who wants to rebuild the temple, perhaps control all of Eretz Yisrael and drive out those who would seek to murder you. By the way, what does the Chazal say? If someone is seeking to kill you, what should you do?
Kill them first.
Yeah, kill them first. Preemption.
Shoot first and
Yeah.
ask questions later.
No.
Shoot, kill.
No.
First.
Know whom to preempt. So if you have such a party platform like that, that is basically a Messianic platform. So God willing, such a thing will be available. Please cast your vote for them. And if you don't, or if the majority do not, and there's been a few times when maybe you had a chance to do such a thing, it's usually the vast minority do so. So now you understand the situation we're in here. I have here a note here about the red cow business. They said that red heifers have been brought to the land of Israel. Is the advent or the discovery of a red heifer the sign of the Mashiach coming? Does it mean that now miracles are going to take place? The answer is no. A red cow is a perfectly natural phenomenon. And indeed, in every generation, they're there. They're valuable because they are rare and they have to be kept under lock and key so not to be ruined. And you have to check them thoroughly to make sure they don't have a hair of another color, no black hairs, no white hairs, but they do exist. And it is something that they used to do all the time. Someone pointed out, but the Mishnah says the red cow processed in Moshe Rabbeinu's time created enough Kar Aduma water to last until Second Temple times. And then suddenly Second Temple times, we have more red cows being processed. So much so that as we go farther into history, you see that they're doing more and more of them. Why would they have a need for more red cows and to process more of them? The answer is, it used to be Am Yisrael was more concentrated. As Am Yisrael spread out, they needed more what's called mei chatat or mei nida in order to purify people. They kept paraduma water in all sorts of far-flung places, so they needed more. Really, this is another thing that we could do today. There was a lot of hubbub in the media, especially in Chutz La'aretz, saying that there's some crazy Messianic Jews who are trying to bring about some sort of apocalyptic nonsense. I don't know. It's funny to hear Goyim talk about what we intend to do. They think we want to bring about the end of the world. Especially the more religious Jews are hoping to do something, and that they speak from basically a Christian standpoint, an ignorant Christian's view of what Jews believe is supposed to happen. So it's utter nonsense. I think it's a good thing that they brought red cows here. There's no apocalypse coming. There's nothing cataclysmic coming. But God willing, there'll be someone who can process it. There were rabbis who were sitting around there. They had a whole, do you hear? They had a whole convention about what to do with these red cows. They should just do it already. Who's qualified to do it? That's a good question. Who's authorized to do such a thing? You need the Kohen Gadol's deputy to do it, right? Do we have such a person yet? Okay, so it should happen. This also brings up an issue. I saw now that there's now two groups that are calling themselves the Sanhedrin, two nascent Sanhedrins. Have you seen this? So someone pointed out the Rabbanut is basically what the Rambam describes as the Sanhedrin. They just haven't taken, they haven't grabbed the power that they should, because they're basically recognized as the rabbinate. So if they would just do what they're supposed to do, they would be the Sanhedrin. Okay, so there's three Sanhedrins. Really, a Sanhedrin is a natural result. If you don't know something, to whom do you take your question? The rabbi, the local rabbi. So when he doesn't know something, who does he go to? You ever follow the money or follow the chain of command here? You know, you're going to say something there. Well, his rabbi. So you could find that in certain places there's a hierarchy, the Moshe Rabbeinu model. If he doesn't know, who does he go to? And you'll find that in certain areas, in certain communities, it basically has a pyramid structure. Who's sitting at the top? In the Sanhedrin, well, Rav Google, unfortunately. So basically, when the rabbis who actually have this halakhic authority and are recognized would sit down and just make decisions together, that would be the Sanhedrin. I don't think it has to be, we are the Sanhedrin, everybody please listen to us, like these two groups are doing. If they don't have the people behind them, they are not the Sanhedrin. Roman historians write about this. Who were the Pharisees? The Sadducees were a minority, but politically strong, right? And then you had the Pharisees. They followed what they called the Sanhedrin. Those were the majority of what we would call the Orthodox Jews. They naturally followed their rabbis. So, God willing, if everybody would just sit down and actually get to talking, we'd have such a Sanhedrin, Bimher of Yomenu. If you scroll to the very end of this document, we have something from Rav Sharkey, who always has a very interesting view of things. And it has to do with, God willing, these coming parashiyot. We're now reading Bahar this week, right? Most years, Bahar and Bechukosai are one parsha. When we have certain type of leap years, we need more parshas, so we divide up Bahar and Bechukosai, like we're doing this year. This year was a leap year. I say was because we already got past other Shani. So Rav Sharkey points out that the blessings of this world and described in the preamble to the Rebbe are mostly of this world. You ever notice that? All the promises. Also, when you read Kriyas Shema, what are the promises for keeping the Torah? Well, you'll get your rain. The rain will come in the right times. You'll have prosperity. The earth will give its produce. The animals will do okay, right? There's no promises in Sefer Bamidbar or Sefer Shemos, or at the end of here of Vayikra, or in Devarim, when we read the other Tocha, promises having to do with what? The world to come. The other reality. You'll be close to God. You will, like Rambam says, the tzaddikim will sit there with their crowns on their head, their figurative crowns, and they will enjoy the radiance of the divine presence. Why is that not described in the books of the Torah? Why is the reward always something a little bit more, I wouldn't say primitive, but a lot more physical? Good question, right? Yeah, so they asked this. So according to Rambam, Rambam basically said, we just finished learning this, the world is for us to achieve a perfection that we will merit life in the next world. This world is so that we perfect ourselves. That's why God gives us prosperity. If you can prosper and you take advantage of the opportunities God gives you, so you can improve yourself up here, you can improve your midos and your understanding, and you will be more fit for the next world. And if you waste your time in this world, especially with your prosperity, spend your time being a hedonist, when your physical body dies, there won't be anything left to really enjoy the next world, which is entirely non-physical. So that's what he just described in Hilchot Teshuva. But what about Rabbi Yehuda Halevi? Who is Rabbi Yehuda Halevi? He wrote the Kuzari. And even though it seems pretty sure that many of the Khazars did convert to Judaism, as did their king, the account of the dialogue between the Al-Khazari, that's the king of the Khazars, and the Chacham, seems to be fictional. That is, it's just a literary tool to bring out these ideas that Rabbi Yehuda Halevi wanted to write about. But that's not necessarily conversations that the king of the Khazars had with his teacher before he converted to Judaism. It'd be very interesting. Maybe his teacher was more of a Rambamist and disagreed on many of these essential points. But the point is they became Jewish. So what do you say? The goal of this world is to create a perfected world here, just like the next. Okay? You could turn this world perfect, and it'll become like the next world. So the king of the Khazars then opined that if there is another world, God's kingdom, then the truly pious and righteous would desire to leave this world. What does it mean to leave this world? They would actually look forward to dying or even kill themselves and go straight to that world, if there is such a thing, right? The next world is better, so why don't you have it that people who suffer, especially if you have a really righteous, wise person suffering in this world, maybe, I don't know, mercy killing, or just take the easy way out. And there have been, by the way, some old people get really disenchanted, disconnected from all their loved ones, so they don't do much to keep themselves in this world. But you would think that even the wisest, that's not such a good thing to do, but you'd think that wise people who desire to be close to God would want to shed this mortal coil. And indeed, by the way, who felt that such a thing? There's always a cult or two in every generation that actually believes such a thing. There were pre-Christian Jews who believed this. There were early Christian-like groups who were originally offshoots from Judaism who believed that. And every now and then there's some kooks who do believe in such a thing. You remember, what was it, the Heaven's Gate cult? When the Hale-Bopp comet showed up, do you remember? It was in California, I think. Yeah, you remember? Talk about, you guys, most of you are older than me. You should remember this. I remember it. Okay, so they believed that there was some sort of next world. The advent of this comet in the sky, the Hale-Bopp comet, was a sign that their spaceship to the next world was coming. So they all, in turn, committed suicide. You remember that? When they found them all dead. The Heaven's Gate cult in California, I think it was. Well, all the loonies aren't California, so I would assume it's California. Okay. Also, they died by poisoning. If they'd been in Texas, it would have been through shooting. So, by the way, what? The Muslims do have a belief also, a little bit, that sometimes you could shortcut to their paradise by what? By just blowing yourself up. You know, they said if the local Muslims would create a Tesla, they'd give it a self-destruct button also. Okay. So there are crazies who has such a thing, and that's what the king of the Khazars, at least in this account, asked of the Chacham. So his answer was, the sage answered him that this world, I don't know why the S is missing. I added it 3 times. This world is the goal, as described in the blessings. That's the point of the Tocha. Really, you should understand that if God put you in this world, there is what to achieve in this world. This world is the goal, according to Rabbi Yehuda Halevi. The physical world will become perfected. That's how he saw it. You could turn Olam Hazeh into an Olam Haba-like existence. And that's why the sages, I guess now he's agreeing with the Rambam, that they wanted to continue living in this world and enjoy the Messianic era and everything that God has to offer us now. So Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berdichev also answered that the heavens are for the Lord. Shemaim Shemaim Lashem. V'aretz Natan Livnei Adam. Okay? He gave us this world. You don't want to go up to the heavens. You're not meant to be there. We just invest too much in killing each other instead of spiritual endeavors. If we would actually strive like we're supposed to, we can understand that many of the achievements, perhaps, of the next world are possible in this world. But Rav Kook gave a resolution. This is something good. That's why you should listen to Rav Sharkey, because he was very much understanding of Rav Kook's most profound ideas. I'm trying to catch up on all of them. So you find that a lot of the talk about Olam Haba and the Messianic era comes from when? Second Temple times. First Temple times, there was not so much about that. Why? Because, let's say, when they achieved their state, let's say Solomonic perfection, when the first temple was built and which continued afterwards, that was a form of perfection, and they had no need for the next world. They were basically living exactly as God had always intended for Am Yisrael, like the Kuzari says. But in Second Temple times, which there was a lot of inconsistency. There was times where the Second Temple fell entirely into disuse, for example, before Hanukkah times, foreign conquerors. There was a lack of Shechina, as they say, no prophets around. There were sieges. There were times when the Tamid was stopped, even before the temple was destroyed. So in those times, when it was certainly lacking in perfection, and most of Am Yisrael were still in Galut, so that we have more talk where Chazal are describing to us what exactly the prophets were hinting at when they describe the next world. Give me a second after chart, and we'll go into Shar Hagmul. Who wrote Shar Hagmul? Anybody read it yet? Okay, so we'll look at this. There is Rambam,
Question.
Ben Maimonides. Hold on. Sorry. Yeah, what's the question? Only at the end. Only in the time leading up to the destruction. Okay, that's why they fell into a hole and they couldn't get out of it. But for most of the time, the first temple was standing, at least in the kingdom of Yehuda, things were good. If you had a king like Achaz, who was an idolater, he was the exception. The people were good. They're only criticized by the Nevi'im for doing what? What's the main criticism of the people in the land of Yehuda in the times of the first temple? Bamot. And what's a bama? It's not avodah zarah, thank God. It's not shfichus dam. It's not gilui rayos. It's the idea that you could. Well, it's great to build your own shul. The problem was, occasionally they put a mizbeach and they had it sacrificed there. I don't know why, but this isn't working. I don't want to disconnect everybody. Is it? Now it is. Well, Talia? Sorry, what'd you say? Yes, so she was the exception. So she was bad. She was around for 6 years, and she built a Beit Baal, okay, in Jerusalem, and there was a popular uprising against her, and that set things right. But the people had not engaged in such a thing. It was only in Menashe's time where he basically caused everybody to get involved in his sins. It says he filled Jerusalem with blood, and everybody started worshiping idols. So then we had a problem. But for the few hundred years leading up to that point, things were good. Okay, and the kings were generally good. Rabbi Victor Miller wanted to say, if you have a king of Yehuda before Achaz who's criticized for not doing that which is right in the eyes of God, they're holding him to a very high Davidic standard. Okay, it means that he wasn't strong enough in trying to stamp out the bumos, for example. What did Rechavam do? Rechavam was Solomon's son. It says that he gets a grade F. Was he wicked? No, he was generally good. And it even says he got his comeuppance, I think, within 5 years of taking the throne. And after that, it says he repented. But it still says he got an F for that. What was the problem? His problem was that when he took the throne, the bummos came back, and he didn't get rid of them. It took his grandson to get rid of them. Okay, well. Yes, there were some people who stoned the Navi Zechariah. There was a group of people who did that. Yes, he told off people who were, gave him some musser. Many of us, if we get musser from a Navi like that, we also might want to lynch him, unfortunately. It was difficult to be a Navi then. But that doesn't mean that there was a whole state, everybody was worshiping idols, and they were full of other terrible sins that we should not mention. It certainly was not the case, thank God. It says that what was the main problem that he was speaking out against? The king had a few advisors who started treating him like a god. Certainly wasn't the people's problem. The masses were still loyal to the Torah. Okay, let's see some Shar Hagmul from the Ramban. The Ramban, Rav Parnas said that learning Ramban on the Parsha is like learning Tosfos on Gemara, because when you learn Parsha, you learn Rashi, and then when you learn Gemara, you learn Rashi, and then you look across the page on Tosfos, you see there's a totally different interpretation of what the Gemara is supposed to be. So too, when you learn Ramban on the Parsha, after learning Rashi, you see that there's a lot more to be said. Rashi is not the final word, even though Rashi is the first word, and Rashi is the main word. There is more to see there. So Ramban had much to say about the Rambam's major philosophical and theological ideas. Foremost among them is a few essays he has that are included in his Perush on the Torah, where he mentions Rashi a lot and Ibn Ezra. But every now and then he'll tell you, that in More Nevuchim it says X, Y, and Z, but I disagree very strongly. The Ramban does that a few times, just mentions Rambam. Even though Rambam didn't write a Perush on the Torah, the Ramban felt it important to address some major issues of the More Nevuchim within his Perush on the Torah. So too, on Sefer Mitzvos, the Ramban had a lot to write, filling in a lot of gaps there in what the Rambam said, and I think it's a very important thing. There's a lot that which he agrees, but also a lot that he disagrees. So we're going to bring up a few ideas just in this beginning of Shar HaGvul, that after learning what the Rambam's conception of Olam Haba is, we'll see that there's a little bit more that needs to be said. Some of the things we touched on before. So the first is he's going to ask, what is Gehinnom? Because I'll describe such a thing, but what is it? Well, yeah, Gai Ben Hinnom is a physical valley that's been turned into a concert hall, and you can't really go into there all the time. That's where it was. Why would that give its name to this otherworldly place or a next worldly type of place? I'd like to first just offer to everybody, it's good if you would, when approaching these matters, try to clear your mind of anything you've inherited from the Christian Western world, especially ideas of what they call hell. Okay, all those things are nonsense. So just start with read this with the So too, ideas of a devil, satanic things like that. You believe that there is one of the angels that's a Satan, but Satan means he's appointed to act as the prosecutor in the heavenly court, but certainly not the way the Christians have taken that word and corrupted it and created a new concept and all those other things. Okay, just forget about it. So the Ramban writes, the sages say that the ultimate punishment, retribution for the sinners is what's called Gehinnom. The ultimate reward is the next world. Mahu hadina zesh nikra Gehinnom. We should explain a bit. What is this retribution, Gehinnom? Uma davar shenidonbo ve'matay yadunbo. What is actually is judged then, and when? It's a good question. Someone wanted to suggest that the onesh happens to a person's physical body once he is dead. Okay? They punish the body. Technically speaking, once a person's dead, his dead body is inanimate. It might as well be inanimate stone. If you were to burn his remains to lime, that is just like white ashes. Let's say you would embalm him, like the Egyptians used to do. You want to preserve his body forever. It matters not to this inanimate object. You burned it or you preserved it, it's still an inanimate object. There is but one fate for both the righteous and the wicked to their body after they die. We're all physical, we're all made out of dirt, same thing. So it can't be that the physical body of the righteous goes into Olam Haba for reward, and the physical body of the wicked person goes to Gehinnom. Physical body does not experience anything. They can even be buried together in one grave. Well, you're not supposed to do that. Or you could put them both in the same sarcophagus, the body of the righteous and the body of the wicked, and they're right there. They're experiencing the same thing, but it must be the righteous and the wicked do experience something after this world that is different. So what is it? So I wrote here also a little, that you can read this, basically explanation of what the Ramban said. So the Ramban continues, Harei she'ein onesh ela lanefesh. So it must be that the punishment applies only to the soul, whatever that is. Is there a soul? There must be. Umau onesh hamasigota. What kind of onesh could encapsulate, or catch up to it? V'arei nefesh eina guf ugliya. The nefesh is no body. There's no physicality to it. There's no form. Ve'ina nitpeset b'makom. It can't be caught in one particular place. Also, there's no barriers that are in front of this eternal soul. So what is this place called Gehinnom where it is judged? The soul goes to Gehinnom. Chazal described it as a place where the soul is judged. So where is this place? Okay, the place cannot hold such a thing, and fire cannot burn such a thing. The only thing that could be held in place or burned by fire are that which is physical. Good point. It must be that this punishment is that this soul goes lost and is cut off forever. Okay, and once again, you can read the English there for that I put there for our purposes. This matter is not, the way people usually think. It's not the way the Torah thinks, and not the way our sages of blessed memory thought. These are foreign ideas from those who consider themselves, smarter. They think of self-described wise people among the nations of the world. Because according to what they're saying, the only punishment that exists is karet. The problem is, you say it must be kares is the punishment. Kares is not the punishment for everything. It's not a catch-all. There has to be other punishments besides kares. If one were to say that kares is the only punishment there is, the soul is cut off, then he has no, remedy. He has no solution. What happens to those who do not get kares? There are many people who are wicked who should get something else, but their souls are not cut off. So what does happen to them? Okay, or as I wrote here in English, but this can't be because not all of the wicked deserve excision. V'od l'dad zo asiyat. Hold on. Over koret echad. No, asita over koret echad. Let's say you have a person who violated one act for which he deserves karet. What's a very simple that you and I would think is, in our little understanding, a light mitzvah for which the punishment is karet? Anybody know? Yeah, eating chametz on Pesach, or eating on Yom Kippur, victimless crime, right? I eat every day. Or, yeah, yes. So you can understand infanticide or mass murder. Those people do get kares also, right? If the Beis Din doesn't put them to death for what they did, so they deserve kares, the ultimate punishment. You know that a person who eats blood, a Jew who eats a little bit of blood, is punished with kares. So too a person who eats chelev. Chelev comes from behemoths that are shechted. Now Gentiles don't have such a thing. Gentile eats the blood of an animal that he shechter, eats the chelev from an animal. That's totally fine. So what's so bad about those? It's a good question, as I wrote in here. This removes the degree of wickedness. Let's say you have real people deny God's existence. Apikoris in the kofar, or the person who was a mass murderer his entire life. Okay, shavim b'dinehem. They end up cut off with kares, their ultimate punishment, just like this fellow who ate a kazayas of chalev once. Doesn't seem fair. Sharei shnehem avudin ve'eni mahem tsar v'yisrina char mita. Their soul is just cut off, so there's no tsar. In this case, it's affliction. That'd be yisrim. Tsar is pain, and yisrim is affliction after they die. If you're going to say that's it, person was wicked in this world, kares, one size fits all, a catch-all for all the wicked people. It doesn't seem to be quote unquote fair. Okay, mass murderers and those who eat chalev, I don't think that they should get the same punishment. That's what the Ramban's pointing out. So, or as I wrote here in English, this removes the nuance of the degree of wickedness. mass murderers should deserve a lot worse than, let's say, eaters of unsalted but kosher meat. It's true. Excuse me. We also have a tradition that there were among, let's say, the deniers of the Torah, those who had such an opinion. Mehen shekofer be'onesh v'sachar shelachar mita kinyan shnemar b'yitzhara ki'in ma'aseh v'cheshpon v'dat v'chokma b'shol asher ataholech shama. There were those deniers who said there's no reward, there's no punishment. Basically, their Yitzhara told them that once you're dead, that's it. You got this world is what you have. They used to say, eat, drink, and be merry. Tomorrow you're going to be dead, and that so what's going to be? There's no consequences even. Umehem shelo haya onsham chamur alehem. And others heard this and said, okay, so when I die, my soul will be cut off. That'll be the ultimate end of me. There'll be no more existence. So be it. Shelo hayu modim ela ba'avadon nefesh. Okay, they wouldn't agree to anything, any of our theological arguments, especially about God's existence, except for this idea that there's no soul after death. Okay, if he were to die, and that's it, so that's it. By the way, there was a famous Kofer who said such a thing before he died. He really believed this until the very end. His name was Christopher Hitchens. He discovered that he was Jewish shortly before his death. So he said, all these people are coming to me, oh, you're an atheist in the foxhole, because he was a very vocal atheist. Also a little bit of an anti-Zionist until he also had a little hearer of Teshuva sort of at the end. By the way, he continued with his averas and all the self-destructive behavior until he died of cancer. He used to love to smoke and drink. And he basically said that I'm not going to do Teshuva in any of this regards. I'm not going to have any religious awakening because I know that once I'm dead, that's it. Okay, so what do I care? Umidvrei chachamim ein tzarich lavi raya lefi shekol Talmud umidrashei rabotenu meforashim hein binyanei Gehinnom va'ona shahu. Okay, but we do know explicitly there's a lot that Chazal say about Gehinnom and the punishment that is fitting and what's going to happen afterwards. It's not that that's just it. He's going to explain now. He's going to bring a lot of Midrash Chazal to explain what did Chazal really believe about Gehinnom. Okay, so let's go right into it. So there were those who said, or I like this expression: if you're going to do the time, you might as well do the crime. Okay, there are some people they live this world. They realize, well, I have no chance for Olam Haba, so might as well just do all the affairs I'm still doing. Is that a smart thing to do? No, because you could repent in this world. Even if we believe that even a person was up to the worst sins until the very end, if he legitimately repents, he does have a chance in the next world. Okay, so let's number 35. Let's go through these Gemaras here that the Ramban is going to bring, and he's actually going to try to develop a thesis with them. Here's what it says in Menachos. It says here a person was instigated by Pitzar. There's an opening that's very very narrow, as Krabach used to say. Gehinnom shepiatzar. Gehinnom has a very narrow mouth, a very narrow entrance. Sheyehei ashanah tzavur b'tocha. So that the smoke of the Gehinnom stays in there. If it had a wide open mouth, the smoke would get out. But here, it's basically hotboxing. Right? The smoke of the Gehinnom is kept inside. B'shem tomar geshem shepiatzar kach kula tzara. Maybe we're going to say, well, if it has a small opening, maybe it's also a very small place, not so much punishment going on there to make all that smoke. Talmud lomar he'amik hirchiv. It's been God was telling them make it deepen it and widen it. Shema tomar, maybe he'll say ein ba eitzim. Maybe there's not enough wood to keep the fire going. Not so much smoke there. Talmud lomar medurata eish ve'eitzim harbei. It's bonfires. It's burning. Medurata eish. It's like we're going to see next week. And it has a lot of firewood. Okay, so Gehinnom is quite large for everybody. They even said that Gehinnom actually has width and length. There's actual dimensions. They don't say how high and how tall it is, but it takes up a certain area. This is in Tainus. Olam echad mishishim bagan. This world is 1/60th of Gan Eden. Vegan echad mishishim ba'eden. And the Garden of Eden is 1/60th of all the land of Eden. The Eden echad mishishim leGehinnom. This land of Eden is 1/60th of Gehinnom. Nimsa kol olam kisui kedera leGehinnom, which means that this world is just like the lid, the pot cover on the pot that is Gehinnom. Okay, it's a 60th of a 60th of a 60th. So that's actually quite large. The Od simulo ptachim. They also described its entrances. Here's what it says in Eruvin. Shlosha ptachim yesh lo leGehinnom. There's 3 entrances to Gehinnom. Echad bamidbar. There's one in the wilderness, as it says. V'yaridu haim d'chlasher lahem chayim she'ola. The Gehinnom yaridu. It says here that Korach and his assembly and Dasan of Aviram, what happens to them? They all went down alive. The earth opened up its mouth and swallowed them. They went down to Sheol. Sheol is, according to at least this understanding, netherworld, reference to Gehinnom using older Hebrew terms. Echad bayam, one in the sea, as it says, mibetin Sheol shawathi. Who's saying that? That was Jonah. He was swallowed by a large fish, and it says he cried out to God from where? From the Beten, that'd be the belly of Sheol. Once again, netherworld, reference to Gehinnom. Hechaziro to adag al mamakei mitzulot ufetach Gehinnom. It says that when Jonah was stuck in this gigantic fish's belly, they passed by the deeps, the deepest part of the deeps, and the entrance to Gehinnom that is in the sea, and that's why he said it. I passed by mi bet and Sheol shawathi. Ve'echad b'Yerushalayim, and one in Jerusalem, as we mentioned. Where? Shneimar Neum Hashem Asher Or Lo B'Tzion V'Tanur Lo B'Yerushalayim. Saith the Lord, who has is it Or? I think it's Or. If it's Or, it means fire in Aramaic, or means light. But either way, Tanur B'Yerushalayim. He has a furnace in Jerusalem. And Chazal said there was actually a place you could see smoke coming out between the palm trees there, some sort of volcanic vent. V'amar Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, Shtei timorot yesh begei ben Hinnom v'le ashan mi beinehem. Used to be 2 tall palm trees there, and there was smoke coming out of the ground between them that you could actually see. V'zo pitcha shel Gehinnom. That is the entrance to Gehinnom. By the way, people were aware of this, that there are volcanic vents every now and then in this world. And there are quite a few here and there as well. Why are there volcanic vents here, but not in, let's say, New York or Florida? Because here we're at the edge of tectonic plates. So you have a little tectonic activity. So you can have volcanic vents, especially in the Kinneret area. We said that it turns out what we know as the Kinneret is one big volcanic vent. It's just very, it's very low and very deep. So it's full of water. Okay, all the rainwater for hundreds and hundreds of years have been going there. So the pressure of the rainwater, the weight of the Kinneret, keeps the volcanic vents down. But if we were to draw too much water out of the Kinneret, it would lighten the load, and then the volcanic vents would push up into the Kinneret and salinate the entire place. What are you going to say? What? Yeah. Yes. With Tveria, right alongside the Kinneret. You're on the highway. You can see that it says, Kinneret Hot Springs. What happens there? Groundwater gets too close to the volcanic activity under the ground, and it comes back up. So there are places also in America like that. Yellowstone Park. They say the biggest volcano in the United States is actually Yellowstone Park. There's a big plateau there. It turns out it's just the mouth of a volcano that has been active for millions of years. And they're worried that if it were to blow its stack, it would destroy the continent. Okay. So that when Chazal described these types of things, Ramban's basically saying that Chazal were saying that there is an entrance. There is sort of a physical Gehinnom down there where volcanic activity is happening. Here's what he said, the Chamei Tiveria. If you have hot springs, can you put your Shabbos food in a pot or some sort of vessel and heat it up with the hot springs on Tiveria? Toldot Orinyanhu. You could heat up your food on Shabbos in certain ways. I think we were discussing it. No, not here. You could solar heat your food, but you can't use this. Toldot Orinyanhu, the Chalfa Fitcha de Gehinnom. This water passes by the entrance to Gehinnom. That's what heats it up. So the Ramban is basically building something here and saying that there is a certain physicality to Gehinnom, and it's where the underground volcanic activity is. Very interesting. The Rambam would say to the Ramban, what would be the Rambam's response to this? Why couldn't the Rambam respond to the Ramban, by the way? Because he passed away before he was born. But what is the Maimonidean response to all of this? Anybody want to offer it? The Ramban is taking Midrashim too literally. Okay? And that's actually their argument. The Ramban says about the Rambam that he didn't take Midrash literally enough. Okay? The Rambam says, for example, that you have angelic revelations to people and other stories. So the Rambam says it's all dreams. Avram Avinu with his angels, all a dream. Even Lot, what Lot had experienced, interacted with two of those three angels, all in a dream. It was all in his head. And Ramban says, so Avram Avinu shechted an animal for them, and Lot went to bake them matzah, and they grabbed him and they had him run out of Sodom. It was all for naught. It was all a dream. It can't be. So Rambam's being too rational and not, suspending his disbelief a little bit. So in all these cases, the Rambam says these are all metaphors for things. And Chazal used the volcanic activity that you could find in places like Tiberia and what used to be in Gehinnom as a metaphor for the ultimate punishment in the next world, but not that you could physically dig a hole and find an entrance to Gehinnom where the souls of the wicked are suffering, each according to his wickedness. Let us continue. This is from Bava Basra, the Ramban says, Shma mina, hai shimsha sumaktihi. Okay? What color is the sun? So it must be red. Okay, the natural color of the sun is red, like the Krypton sun. The samka b'tzafra muvafanya. When the sun is rising in the morning and setting, its true color shows. It's more red than yellow or white. The fact that it looks awfully bright white in the middle of the day, it's our fault. We just don't know how to see the light properly. It's just super bright, and it's our deficiency. Okay, and they try to bring questions against this and break it up. And it says there, at the beginning we said, the sun does appear red early in the morning and towards sunset. Because in the morning it passes by the entrance to what? Gan Eden, which is apparently all the way in the east. Like it says, Gan Eden is in the east. And towards the end of the day, what? The sun is passing near the entrance to Gehinnom, which is apparently in the west. Did the Ramban believe, by the way, like at least the Kuzari says, and the Baal HaMor says, basically that the world is entirely spherical, like also the Ptolemaics used to say this. What we know, and there's actually time zones, and it takes the sun about 24 hours to make a complete circuit across the sky, and there's different times of day. When it's midnight for us, people at the opposite side of the world have midday, and there's always half the world sees the sun and half the world does not. Okay, that's ancient science. Apparently, it wasn't known to all the Rishonim. Okay, they used to think, like the Ramban's bring here. Rabbi Tom said this is the way you have to think. That really, when the sun sets, it goes somewhere else. The sun is physically orbiting the earth, and once it goes below the horizon, it changes path and goes behind the firmament and then makes a route on the opposite side of the sky, behind the firmament, and that's why it's dark at night. You've seen this before, I hope, right? Okay, well that's what they used to believe. So the Ramban is actually believing this. The Chazon Ish said, La halacha, it's like the Baal HaMor and the Kuzari say, and that there's actually right now, even though we see the sun basically in the middle of the day, about 6 hours to our west, they're just seeing the sun rise, and 12 hours to our west, which is exactly 12 hours to our east, it's the middle of the night, and that's the halacha. Okay, so interesting, and that would also tell you where the date line is. In Pirkei the Rabbi Eliezer it says, Bashani bara kadosh baruch hu et harakia v'hamalachim v'isho shel avasar v'dam v'isho shel Gehinnom. Wow! On the second day, God didn't just create the firmament like it says. What else did He create? He created the angels and the fire of basar v'dam. That apparently that's the animating life force that exists among living creatures, and the fire of Gehinnom. Okay, all things are apparently have some sort of physicality to it. Wait a minute, physicality. Do angels have physicality? The Rambam says angels have absolutely no physicality. What does Ramban say about angels having physicality? there's something called Mabush, a Kabbalistic concept, which he believes the Rambam was unaware of, and that indeed angels do have a certain physicality and they can actually appear among men as men. Then they disappear. That's basically the three angels that Abraham saw. According to Rambam, that was all a dream. According to Ramban, it actually happened. Three beings in the form of physical men came and visited Abraham and ate of his food and gave him news. And that happens all the time. And like I say, my personal experience in life has made me believe that perhaps the Ramban is right, even though I'd wish the Rambam was right. Okay, so there's things beyond our comprehension apparently. Uferishu Sham, they explain there, Shaharakia Hazeh, Hu Harakia Sha'al Rashi Achayot. This firmament that they're describing is the one beyond this level of angels called the living beings. Shnemar, Udmud al Rashi Achayot Rakia. Yechezkel saw this. There was an image, a form of this firmament, a Rakia, above where the Hayot were. Yechezkel saw the Hayot and the Ofanim and even Kruvim, right? So Kruvim had certain forms to them, and the Ofanim and the Galgalim and the Chashmal, different names for different angelic visions that he saw. So we say that they all have an actual physical form. Gamru Sham, Rabbi Yeshua Omer, what does Rabbi Yeshua say? Ov Yashel Aretz Malach Shishim Shana. The thickness of the earth is a person, what a person could walk in 60 years. Okay, 60 years. How far could a person walk in 60 years? That's the thickness of the earth. Utahom echad shehu etzel genom novea umotzi chamim ta'anug livnei adam. And there is the deep waters there, that's next to Gehinnom, and it flows out of there, or actually it springs forth from there, and brings water that's a tanug for people, hot springs. Okay, there's physicalness underneath there. And the Brisa says, the orko she'olam b'makom hazeh, shiva mekomot zeh lemata bizeh. There are 7 places in this thickness of the world, each one below the other. Vein Gehinnom, v'sharit Salmaveth. One is the gates of the valley of death. Shari Maweth, just gates of actual death. Titayovain, the basically this is a type of mud that a person can't get himself out of, like a quicksand. Bor Shachatz, which means the pit of despair. Sheol, the netherworld. Avadon, complete loss. Ulamata Mikulan Arka. There's one they call Arka. Arka is like nothingness. Okay. And these angels of destruction, they set the wicked people standing in this arka underneath this Nahar Dinur. Nahar Dinur is Aramaic for river of fire. It comes out from beneath God's throne of glory, as it says in Jeremiah. Here is God's. It's a type of fury, but it means his storm. Okay? God's wrath is compared to a storm. It's hot rage going out, the sa'ar mitcholel, and it's a whirlwind that is agitating. Al rosh risha'im yachul, and it passes over the heads of the wicked. V'hayored la'arka misham shuv eino oleh. One who goes down to this lowest level never comes back up. V'hein yidonim l'dorei dorot, and there they are judged forever, okay? For all generations. So I'm gonna scroll down here to get to the part that we have in bold. Ve'elu kitzada mikomot shesafaru bahen inyan Gehinnom v'tzaro v'onsho b'gmara v'midrashim. This is just a little bit of everything we can find in the words of Chazal describing the suffering and the punishment of Gehinnom. Umadadu et tochnit. Madadu tochnit. Madadu et tochnit is a reference from Yechezkel. It says after Yechezkel saw the vision of how the ultimate temple is supposed to be, he was told, start taking the measurements, start drawing up the blueprints. So he says that the sages themselves seem to have actually been quite aware of even the physical measurements of Gehinnom. Udvarim alalu v'chayotzi bahen. These matters and similar ones. Ein litlot otam b'mashal. You can't say that it's just an allegory, like who said? Rambam. Sheharei is kiru mikomo midato or kov rokbo. They're telling you where it is. They're telling you its measurements, how wide it is, how long it is, how deep it is. They tell you how far down you could get to, how far down you have to go to get to it. V'danu alav linyan isur v'heter. There are even some halachas that come out of this. Isur and heter. We saw a Shabbos example. I skipped over a longer one that also gives examples of halacha that actually depends on this. V'hu muskar lahem binyan adinim ushar kama mekomot shelo his karnu. And when we talk about dinim, the ultimate judgment of the next world, so you see there's many more places. Of course, Maimonides would disagree with this, but according to Ramban, he took this very seriously. Okay, so before we take our break before the next part, we're going to learn Gemara. There's a little bit the Ramban here says that it's a little bit reminiscent of the Ramban shita regarding the primordial matter. The Ramban says that God used tohu and vohu. Apparently, it doesn't mean a chaotic state, but instead it means a primordial matter from which the rest of matter was created. It's this form of creation ex nihilo, and he called it something that Chevelle wrote as HYLY. Problem is, those are Latin letters, and it's supposed to be a Greek transliteration. I heard it's pronounced like Yuli or something like that. You know, familiar with this word? The Ramban mentions it right at the beginning of Bereshis. So he's basically describing some sort of materials that nowadays, I guess, physicists would not want to, talk about, but they used to believe in the four basic elements. What are the four basic elements? Yeah. So we know that everybody believed in that. Even Rambam believed in that. And of course, Al Pi Kabbalah, that's what exists. We now know that the composition of matter is a lot more complicated than that. Even everything they told us about protons, neutrons, and electrons is actually highly inaccurate. Really, you should have asked, but what are those made up of, right? And it turns out there's a lot more subatomic particles and how they interact that actually give rise to those three things, but at least people can understand those. So the Ramban is going to describe here that there's some sort of material, an otherworldly material that doesn't fit into the rest of what we know, that actually composes the souls. And that's how it could be that the souls have a certain physicality to them, that they could be confined to this place that's Gehinnom. What's the question? Yeah, God particle. Okay, well, who got to name it that? Yeah, I remember there was a professor 30 years ago started talking about something called string theory. Okay, didn't know how to describe his most elementary particles. He said were strings. Okay, what does he mean by a string? And what are those strings made of? Yeah, so as professor, what's holding up the world? The turtle. Yeah, what's holding up the turtle? It's turtles all the way down. Okay, just strings. Okay, let's read what the Ramban says. Yeah, just a mathematical model. Yeah, but what's the physicality there? Is there nothing? There's some sort of thing happening, a mathematical wave function that's there that gives rise to physical matter. Certain wave functions give rise to protons and neutrons that can make a nucleus, whereas other ones give rise to electrons, which apparently have no mass, right? They're very, very difficult things that I don't know if there's anybody alive even today who can properly understand this. Okay, if he is alive, I know who he is, but even then, maybe he can't even explain it to me. But I haven't understood it. I don't want to mock it, by the way. They do discover these things. Eventually, they theorize that there should be a certain particle that exists, and what happens? 20 years later, 30 years later, what do? They have a nice atom smasher or some other thing, and what do? They actually find it, right? So we shouldn't laugh at it. I'm just saying that there's a lot more beyond our comprehension. Elakachi kabbalat rabotenu. Shakadosh baruch hu bara nefashot shelat tzadikim. The Holy One, blessed be He, created the souls of the righteous. Vehein below safek ruach sakav etakabi. They're a type of, when he says ruach, he means like a primordial matter, like the wind, the matter form, air. Zakav etakabi, very fine, very pure. Einagu, it's not a physical body. Velo nigbelet, and it's not limited. Velo nigderet b'makom, it's not confined to one place. Velo nidpeset kishar ruchot tofsino otan binodot. Not like other types of winds, gases that you could actually trap within, like, let's say, a bottle. You could trap some air here. You blow into a balloon and trap the air there. Ella, he says here, makata malachim v'na'aleit bioter. No, it says Ella mikat hamalachim. It's from the same group as the angels. and it is very lofty. Ein kan makom lefaresh kol musag mimena. Okay, and I can't really explain here exactly what I'm talking about, but it's some stuff. V'akatuv me'id aleha. This is even described in the verse. What does it say? Vayipach ba'apav nishmat ruach hayim. It says that God formed man afar mihan dama. He made him out of dirt, and then he blew into him. He inflated him with this nishmat ruach hayim. V'amar ki nishmat Eloah nitanah. V'lo mehishtalshel hasibot. It says that the neshama came directly from God. It was given to him by God, and it's not any sort of permutation from the sibot. The sibot are matter that does not have an independent existence. Everything is a result of something else, but not this human soul. It comes directly from God. Our sages say that they were created barishon. It means on the first day, among all the other creations of light. Remember, there was a light created on that day, by the will of the Holy One, blessed be He, and then defined this lowly world. But the upper world, the heavens, they're much more pure. And they also have physical bodies, and they also have, by the way, intelligence. Even the Rambam agreed that the sun, the stars, and the moon have a certain intellect to them. They're actually sentient in a different way, but that's what they used to believe. And he, blessed be his name, what did he do? He created this place called Gehinnom. He created a very fine form of fire, okay? Finer than regular fires. It's not some sort of physical substance that can be grasped. And this very fine fire actually can take hold of other fine materials like human souls and destroy them. Okay, so the Rambam says basically different form of physicality, understandable physicality of which our souls exist and of which the fire of Gehinnom exists. V'sham koach ha'esh hazo, no, v'sam koach ha'esh hazo v'oto makom hamuzkan yizkar. He put this fire in that place that we've described already. That would be the Gehinnom. Kasher sam kochot ha'sichlim hanivdalim. Just like he gave other intelligences that are separate from ours. Shehei malachim, that we call them the angels. L'chokoteim b'shamayim. Just like the angels have their presence up in heaven, so too there's a fire down in Gehinnom. V'frisho rabotenu zichronam levracha bein ha'esh she'ba'olam hazeh uvein ha'esh hahi l'dakut oto ha'esh. Okay, the sages make a fine distinction between this otherworldly fire that exists in Gehinnom and the fire that exists in this world. We'll pause here. There's a lot more to say about this, but I'm sure this is for many people, this is mind-blowing to read these types of things. Was the Ramban correct? There are many who disagree with the Ramban. By the way, this is not the final word about how to understand this, obviously. We've only begun to scratch the surface. So stay tuned.
Like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.